now with the development of the, and we must say that there are many teachings or good therapeutical practices or shadow work modalities. So the second dimension is like you try to start to open up a little bit below the surface of the ocean. You see what's like 200 meters below, and there are all kind of stuff lurking there that when I was meditating, I didn't know I have them, like deficiency core programs and some kind of utilities. Like I believe that it's not safe to get close to people, and I believe that it's not safe to let a woman into my heart because then I'm going to lose her and I'm going to feel lost. But all of this, I had no idea that was in there,
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? Turn the interview on. It's because I asked someone else this, another green checkmark facilitator, is you go from not knowing that's in there. What did it take for you to discover that that was there? Like, I know it was the KI tools helped, of course, but there's other qualities to it. Can you answer that? Because I think there's a lot of people who feel that way, that they don't know that there's a lot there still, and they might start discovering it. But I just want to hear from you, like, your process to discover that and then become open to look at it.
I mean, first of all, it was the teaching, the map is important, because I was like, oh, okay, so Scott is saying this, makes sense to me. I verify some of it. Some of it is elusive, so I'm open, I'm trying to apply it. This was having better tools that was important. Second, an essential ingredient is suffering and hitting my head over and over of the same relational pattern and having recurring, ongoing, unfulfilling relationships that I tried everything on them, all the teachings, everything, psychedelic work, everything. And so having suffering and all my tools didn't work. Also, I was more conscious, more aware. So I started to be aware of this somatic, the contractions and tensions and things like that. They became more pronounced. So at some point, I started to use the third dimension tools and to realize, oh my God, this is not just some tension in my chest, that it's just a sensation that I'm trying to allow and be that in which it arises. I tried that and it actually works because it goes down. But my relational unfulfilling patterns continue. So I realized that, oh, actually I'm suppressing. There's actually grief there is sadness, there's fear, and then so I started to use the third dimension tools, and I was motivated by suffering and tired of also using substances to alleviate that discomfort and yuckiness and unfulfillment. So I started using things, and then as I started to dig in, I started to dig into the mud, although my beloved teachers told me not to. The earth kind of opened, and then it was like just like a lot of grief, which was connected with what happened now, that I broke up with my partner, and I don't know why I broke up with her, and I keep doing that, and then I want to get back to her, and I'm like, I'm crazy, what is this? So I find out a little grief, and using the third dimension tools and repression, and it starts to go deeper and deeper, and I realized that it opened to a whole underground reservoir of grief and loss and sadness and fear and aloneness and despair that was prior to breaking up with my girlfriend, that went all the way to major traumatic experiences in childhood that were there all along. So basically with the third dimension tools, it helped me to, this was gradual, but because it was scary. And sometimes I would just suddenly have crying for like 5 minutes and it's like, whoa, okay. But then it will never come. So at some point, and this is pretty recent, more like a few months ago, I really went very deep into the shaft of that pain, and I would end up, actually I would end up intentionally stirring it because I knew it's there and I knew that it will stay down and buried. So I would intentionally go for it. I will really go for it every day, twice a day. And that contraction, that sense of uneasiness and in my belly, in the chest, in this, it turned out being soul crushing grief and this so-called abandonment, and I started tearing up, and then I started crying, and then I started wailing, like wailing, like in Greek tragedies, man, for every day for a long time. And initially it was scary, and I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't do it alone, although I'm pretty skilled at this, I'm pretty stable, but I was like, whoa. So I needed actually peer support. I will reach out to somebody from community. But gradually I realized, hey, this wailing comes and then it goes. And actually I'm good afterwards, and it's okay, and it's safe to just be like in Greek tragedies. and then it moved and it moved and it moved. And it was not just moving grief. As this grief was coming, which was subterranean, oceanic losses, it might not even be, I mean, it's mine from this life, but it might be from another life, and might be my father's and my ancestors. But as this thing was releasing by me, encouraging it, I also started to have great insights, liberating insights, like, oh my God, I have been doing this to myself. I'm recreating abandonment over and over. I abandon people, and I don't need to do this anymore. And actually, I started having insights about love and about, so by feeling deeply from awareness, it also revealed some deeper schema like operating system of my subconscious. And so that's how I need to have tools, you need to have willingness, courage, support, and to have suffering. and to meet the suffering, because just suffering is not enough. Gurdjieff was saying everybody suffers without any result, but conscious, intentional suffering with tools, then it can bring about.
I know we're going to talk about Inside Out, and I don't know if we're going to spend this video to get to it, because we have a lot to say about it, but this just keeps bringing up things, because you said something really quickly, and I want to just bring it back for everybody, because this is a big miss, I think, is that when you rest with a contraction like you said it goes down, and then you move on to something else. That's what I'm calling the Cartesian split. But let me just explain it to people again, because I think this is where we're bypassing a big part of it. Is if you have a big energy like he's talking about, it's especially sometimes it's localized in the sternum or somewhere, pain, something. When you rest with it in first dimension, when you're not making the programming conscious that is creating it, when you rest with it, it can recede back to the unconscious, and you can actually feel more regulated and open. But it's because it receded away from conscious or out of consciousness that it feels that openness is there. It's the difference when I heard you talking is that you picked up different skills, first, second, and then third dimension. And that stopped happening. You weren't just resting in something that was receding. Now you're resting with something and you're keeping it alive in awareness, and you can see the identifications, make the stuff conscious. But that's a big point to make, because we were just talking about the dimensions. That in first dimension, a lot of times all we can do is rest with something, and there's a false confidence almost, because there's a big energy that comes up, I'm going to rest, and then here it goes. But as it goes down, all the programming that keeps it in place goes with it. And then now we can't access it, and we just carry it around,
Yeah.
again.